How we do that?
We have more of that. Bill, Chris. Can't wait for that. I have two.
I'm gonna need more than a page for this meeting, and I'm running out of pages. This would be enough to end the year. Yeah.
How you doing?
Oh, you can use this one. If you want to write on this, you can.
A jam-packed meeting.
Yeah, we got airports. A lot of companies that don't usually report. Like I don't count like every exec report. I just count the ones that we aren't used to reporting. So.
12?
10 different reports, other than like the Nick, Dan, Sarah, and Jack.
Dan.
Ready?
Yeah.
I call to order the December 5th meeting of the Student Government Association. We are live streamed and recorded in the center of the room. Please review your agendas while Adam does roll call.
Caitlin Egan.
Here.
Timothy Allen. Here. Isabella Cattell.
Here.
Scott Dwan.
Here.
Nick Palumbo.
Here.
Anderson Dallaire.
Here.
Gage Glanville. Justin Walls.
Here.
Crystal Mills.
Here.
Naomi Brito.
Here.
Travis McLaughlin.
Here.
Patty Soa. Benjamin Burnham.
Here.
Jaquela Leary.
Here.
Ariane Baker. Abby Glashan. Desiree Brown.
Here.
Vivian Morales. Here. Haley Kane.
Here.
Isabella Moniz. James McDonald. Here. Loic Black. Savannah Souza.
Here.
Miles Jordan. Gavin Fazio.
Here.
Jacob Constant.
Here.
Austin Morgan.
Here.
Brendan Rita. Here. Maggie Roberts.
Here.
Daniel Lyons.
Here.
Liam Connor.
Here.
Angela Hayes.
Here.
Chris Pira.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Are there any corrections from the November 28th minutes? Seeing none. Minutes are approved.
And now for your president's report, Nicholas Smith.
I already got to the podium, you're good. Appreciate it. Hello everyone, today we have a very special presentation. We have three presenters that are going to be presenting together, so I ask that you guys hold your questions for the respective areas until after the presentation is done. Coming down to join us today, we have the Vice President of Administrations and Finance, Stephen Taksar, Director of Residential Life, Chris Willenbrock, and Director of Dining Services, Bill Connors. Thank you for inviting me here today. I really enjoy coming to your SGA meetings, and I hope what we're going to talk about today is informative and helpful for you, especially if you've not been in student government or here for the first time, to understand kind of how, in general, some of our finances at the university work. And that's why we're talking a little bit about that. But let me pull up the presentation and we can get right to it. So we have three people that are going to be presenting today, myself, Chris, and Bill, and they'll run through their particular areas. Mine will be an overview of the university in terms of our financial structure and a bunch of other information.
Here are the main topics we'll be talking about today. I do talk a little bit about kind of a budget primer, I call it, kind of a little bit of a backdrop on how our budget is set up. Challenges, opportunities. We always do an annual tuition comparison to our sister institutions, the public universities in Massachusetts. We'll talk about CPI because CPI is a driver for a lot of our cost increases, preliminary fee assumptions, and then Chris and will wrap it up with things that are driving Res Life financially and the dining program. So these are our major revenue sources coming into the university. I think the most important piece to understand about this table is that what's starting to happen is the state appropriation is growing as a larger percentage of our budget than our tuition and fees, which is interesting. And the reason for that is even though our appropriation is growing a little bit year to year, we are seeing less tuition and fee revenue coming into the university as enrollment is challenged. So in other words, we have fewer students coming to the university than we did several years ago. And when you do the math as a percent of our revenue budget, just strictly by doing that, it creates a smaller percentage of our revenue budget. So hopefully that will change as we implement these strategies to increase enrollment. You can also see that Res Life and Dining are a really significant part of our budget, almost about 20%. So it's not an insignificant amount of our budget, and it really does help to drive the finances of the university. CGCE is a separate unit at the university. It runs online classes, some evening classes, non-credit classes, things of that nature. It's also not an insignificant piece, about 10% of our budget. And then we have a variety of other categories that make up our revenue budget. We receive income from the foundation of the university. We generate our own interest income from investments, so we take some of that cash return and add it to our budget. Grants is a part of that, et cetera, et cetera. As we move to the expense category, the other side of the equation, our expense budget is $127 million. You may notice that the revenue budget is $118 million. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but our current budgeted expenses are as follows. It should be no surprise that the largest piece is compensation and benefits. That's the cost to pay all the people that are working at the university and the cost for providing benefits to full-time employees. I think I mentioned this last year. For every dollar we spend on salaries, the cost of benefits is about 45%, give or take. So for every dollar that you're paying an employee, the cost to provide them benefits is another 35 cents. You can see Res Life is also, and dining are still significant parts of our expense budget, about 23%. CGCE, department operations are the funds that support each individual department. So when they have to buy supplies, travel, or other miscellaneous expenditures, that's where that gets charged. It's spread around 40 or 50 departments, quite a few departments that rely on that funding for their operations. The other category comprises the other smaller buckets of funding. Utilities is included in there. When we structure the budget, financial aid is counted as an expense. We have direct campus debt. For example, we took out some debt that we have to pay for the Stevens building. And we also have strategic investments coming out of that other category. So there's a bunch of other expense categories in that $24 million. What's the fee setting process? Because I think that's really where the rubber hits the road, is how does the university determine what fees or revenue it needs to generate in order to pay its bills? This is basically the planning process. We start modeling various scenarios right after enrollment is confirmed for the fall semester. So after enrollment was confirmed in October, we kind of start modeling expenses and revenues for the upcoming year. We also do enrollment projections. So those are projections that are provided by the enrollment operation and office to help us understand how many students we expect to return to the university, as well as how many students we think will be coming. We then try to estimate our state appropriation. It's kind of ironic. We have to determine what we assume that will be about 8 months before we actually get it. It's kind of a guessing game along the way. And so we make our best estimates and fine tune as we need to. Then we start moving into developing our budget models for the university in earnest. Try to put together the pieces that comprise each one of our budget categories at a very detailed level. So that comes together in the spring. And then we kind of repeat the cycle a couple times until we have a budget. We have a draft budget usually produced in June for the board of trustees so they can look at what we're thinking about at that point in time. And then in recent years, we've asked for final budget approval in October after we know what the enrollment numbers are. So we make adjustments all along the way during the entire course of the cycle. What are our challenges? We've got a lot of challenges, but we also have a lot of opportunities. So our biggest challenge is enrollment. We've seen significant declines in our operation in terms of the number of students coming to the university. That's true at many other state universities as well. We are not the only ones in this situation. So we're all trying to figure out how to attract more students and keep the students we have. The spin-off to that is that when we see a decline in students, we also see a decline in our occupancy rates of our residence halls. So we have lots of vacant space. Of course, you know that the Lammers residence hall is mothballed for a year while we figure out what to do next. Demographics are changing, meaning that the number of high school graduates are declining for the next several years. So there's a limited pool of in-state Massachusetts residents that are going to be graduating and available to go to college. So that's also a challenge. And the community colleges are increasing their market share primarily because they're getting a little bit more state funding for various programs. But they're all trying to figure out how to maintain their own capacity. Expenses are always increasing. I'll talk about that when we get to CPI. And we have increasing deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance, simply put, is the amount of work you need to do to maintain your buildings and have them in good repair for health and safety reasons, for just general repairs for roofs, windows, doors, heating systems, cooling systems, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't keep up with that on a regular basis, the backlog tends to grow. Again, every university is struggling with the same issue as we are. Probably the only place that's not is Harvard University, I guess. And we also continue to seek efficiencies as we move through the budgeting process. We do have opportunities, and there are lots of them, and the university is doing its best to take advantage of them. So we're investing in a variety of innovation projects at the university. The president has a fund that she allocates money to, primarily for academic initiatives, but also for other initiatives that will raise revenue and increase the quality of education. So that's an active project, and that is a multiple year investment. The university is also seeking money from the board, and we have approval to spend another $2 million out of our cash reserves, which will help to provide investment dollars for various strategies to improve our economic health and to increase our enrollment. The new vice president for enrollment and student affairs is developing a new enrollment strategic plan that's in the works. And we do receive additional state funding, and the most recent example I would point to is the additional financial aid coming out of the Fair Share Amendment, which was a vote that occurred in the state of Massachusetts last fall. Recent communications from the state has indicated that Westfield, among other state universities, will be receiving an amount of money to support financial aid awards for Pell-eligible students and also other students. We're actively working on strategic planning right now for the next 5-year plan. Every public university produces a strategic plan with a 5-year projected planning cycle. So we're doing that right now. And we're also actively working on NETCHI, which is the accreditation body that gives us the ability to grant degrees. We have some things we're working on with that. So quite a bit of activity on this front that we're diligently working towards. This particular graph is the comparison graph of all the other state universities' tuition and fees. We do this comparison every year just to see where we stand. We still are in the middle of the pack with regard to fees from last year. We increased our fees last year about 3%, and you can see many of the other state universities did the same thing. If you compare our tuition and fees to the weighted average of all the state universities, we're about 1%, a little more than 1% higher, about $150 higher than the average of all the other state universities. If you look at how we compare to UMass, we're still a pretty good deal. We're about 29% less than what you would pay for tuition and fees at UMass. This is all publicly available, by the way, on the Department of Higher Ed website. I just pulled it from their database. I also did do a 5-year kind of look back for the university to look at where we've been and what fees we charged over a period of 5 years. We did have 1 year in 22, kind of the tail end of the pandemic, where we did not increase tuition and fees, but many of the other years we have. You can calculate the average increase in multiple ways. So in terms of full disclosure, I've done it 2 ways. So you can see, you can pick whichever number you'd like. But if you average it in one technique, it's about a 2% increase. If you do an average of the increases over the 5 years, it's a 2.7% average annual increase for 5 years. I have some slides on CPI indicator and the same kind of 5-year comparison, so that'll be interesting when we get to that point in time. CPI, I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but it is the indicator we use to try to understand what's changing in the marketplace. Not all things are created equal. Different elements of CPI move in different directions. You'll see, for example, that when Bill does his presentation on food, the cost of food is still escalating faster than what the federal government would like to see CPI at, which is 2%. We track the CPI urban indicator. There are multiple indicators you can use. This is all available, publicly available on the federal website, the price index website. In real terms, if you bought a car for $10,000, this year it would cost you $320 more than last year if you bought the same car, which is essentially an inflation factor of 3.2% year over year. So prices are going up for a variety of things. It's interesting to note that some of the energy sectors, they're seeing declines in energy, which I was a bit surprised at, considering that our local utility is going to charge us more next year. So they're down almost 16%. This is just a year-over-year comparison by the categories. All items, food, energy, and then everything but food and energy. So when they do it that way, they do. The average annual growth in CPI over that same 5-year period that I showed you, our fees were increasing, was 4.1%. So the reason I did this is to show you that we're not passing on every cost that we incur relative to cost increases. You know, we're doing our best to hold those costs down by finding other ways to provide your educational experience, by either purchasing more goods competitively and just trying to hold costs down for negotiating better contracts. So just know that we're doing our best to hold those costs down, but at some point, some increases are avoidable. This is not finalized, but here's the range of what we're thinking based on what we know today. I want to just reiterate, this is not a final determination. It's just what we're thinking based on the information we have right now. So I'll start from the bottom up. The overall cost of attendance is the overall cost of attendance for mandatory tuition and fees. And if you're a residential student, we consider those also as part of our mandatory fees. So we're thinking we're going to be in the 3% range, which could be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. We're not sure yet. We still have work to do. Dining services is in the 3.5 to 5%, probably closer to 5%, given the food increase issues. Residential life is probably in the 3% range. Again, we're still working the model. And the general fee also will run somewhere between 2.5% and 3.5%. So this is just what we're thinking right now. There's more work to be done, more information to be gathered, and more analysis and discussions to move forward. But I think the bottom line is we'll probably be somewhere close to inflation, give or take a little bit up or down. So that's where we are right now. We'll certainly make this slide deck available to you after the presentation, so that you don't need to take detailed notes. You'll get the whole package. And we'll be here as long as you have questions on what we presented or anything else we can answer. So that's my piece, and I'm going to ask Chris Willenbrock to come up and do the rest of that piece.
All right, hello again. In terms of residential life, for those of you who don't know, the residence halls on campus are actually part of a larger organization called the Massachusetts State College Building Authority, which is shortened to MSCBA. So you may often hear us within residential life or even in this setting talking about the MSCBA. And this is basically a government agency within the state that plans, designs, finances, constructs, and basically kind of manages residential and student activities types of entities. So what that means kind of in short is that they basically sort of own our residence halls. And that'll be important in just a little bit. So in talking about the residential life budget, I think it's important, again, to think about our budget as not only part of the university, but also part of this other entity, the MSCBA. And there are really three different elements that make up the RHTF, which is the Residence Hall Trust Fund. The first is revenue, which is basically student rents or the money that we bring in. Our operating expenses, so this is what's needed to actually make the halls run on any given year. And then our debt service. So this is basically what we owe to the MSCBA for the residence halls that are on campus. Hopefully you all can see, but like Steve mentioned, we will be sending this slide deck out. This is about an 8-year span. This is just kind of a visual representation of the Residence Hall Trust Fund and some of the ups and downs, as you all can see. So in green, we have our occupancy, which I kind of liken to our revenue because the majority of our revenue actually comes from room rents. And as you can see, up until about the pandemic or COVID, we were doing fairly okay with, beginning to see a little bit of an increase in our debt service. And then we had a little bit of a dip with COVID, which I'll go through in just a minute. But the red is our debt service. The blue is our operating expenses, so what it takes us to actually run the residence halls. And then the green, like I said, is our occupancy or our revenue. A couple of things to note. So our revenue really hasn't recovered. As Steve mentioned, there are a couple of different factors. But in terms of room rents, we've seen a decline in enrollment. We're getting smaller classes coming into the university, which means we have a smaller pool of residents or potential residents from which to draw upon. And then we're also graduating larger classes. So we're seeing more students exit than we are actually come in. And that's having an impact on the occupancy that we have in the residence halls. How many of you have heard of the enrollment cliff of 2025? A couple of hands. So that is something that is predicted or forecast, that we actually aren't out of this occupancy or enrollment decline, that's going to continue and actually will kind of reach its greatest point in 2025. So we're anticipating that and anticipating the impact that it may have on our enrollment and then subsequently residential population. In terms of our operating expenses, we have done what we can year after year to try and cut costs, do cost savings. Certainly during the pandemic and then after, we did what we could to kind of make sure that we were doing the best with what we were spending. But as Steve has already alluded, and as you all probably know, with inflation, costs continue to go up, and that's for utilities, that's for basic things like toilet paper. All of that plays a part in our operating expenses. And then in terms of this big red line, like I talked about, this is our debt service. So this is what we owe to the MSCBA. And as you can see, there was a little bit of an uptick. They actually did provide some debt relief during the pandemic and then post. But since then, we actually are back to our pre-pandemic debt relief or debt service. And so as you can see, that's really spiked, particularly this year and within the last couple of years. So in terms of our revenue, just to let you all know, as I mentioned, the vast majority of our revenue is student generated. 98.1% of our revenue actually comes from room rents. This is actually up. Last year we were at 97.4, so we've actually seen an increase in terms of our reliance on room rents, which means again that we're more reliant on students living in the residence halls as we continue to see the population and enrollment decline. Apologies, this is actually the third year of our flat housing rate. So certainly when we moved to this model, the university became much more competitive in terms of our room rents versus off-campus. I will say now that we're entering into our third year, we're beginning to look at and truly assess if that is making a difference or has made a difference. Certainly initially we saw a higher number of students staying on campus, but it seems like that's actually begun to level off, and we're not sure if that's continuing to have the effect that we had hoped. In addition to that, the MSCBA is questioning and asking us why we're charging a flat rate versus beginning to price or return to a model where we're pricing out our spaces based on presumed value of them. As Steve mentioned, we are looking at approximately a 3% increase in student rents for next year. So what that would mean is we would go from a yearly rate of $85.50 to about $88.10 by semester. Right now it's $42.75. That would shift or increase up to about $44.05. Again, approximately, that's what we're looking at. And we would continue to offer buyout options by semester as we currently do. Given everything that we're trying to navigate right now, we are certainly looking at coming up with a strategic plan, brainstorming and coming up with more ideas and ways to generate revenue, because as you can see, 98% is a pretty substantial amount of our revenue coming specifically from students. So we're thinking of other ways to potentially use our spaces. As Steve mentioned, with Lammers sitting idle, there's a lot of opportunity for us to potentially use some of our space on campus. But beginning to really brainstorm, are there other ways that we can increase our revenue? And then just to give folks sort of an overview by dollar, for every dollar that is spent, this is how it's basically utilized within our budget. So you can see that the majority of it, about 60% of it, goes to our debt service. And what I mean when I say debt service, it's halls like University, it's halls like New Hall. All of our halls still carry some form of debt. Oftentimes we will remortgage or things like that. And so this is part of what we pay, again, because the MSCBA, in essence, owns our residence halls. The other costs, again, no surprise, near the top of that dollar, although it's not nearly as much as that debt service. We're looking at utilities, which we've definitely seen an increase this year in particular. The next three are really looking at staff. So within the Residence Hall Trust Fund, that's not just the residential life staff, but it also encompasses facilities and operations staff, so our maintainers. It covers, actually we have some of public safety staff in there as well for the ISOs. And then certainly, other elements within that. So you'll notice some of the smallest pieces that are coming out of this dollar: training for our staff, administrative expenses, so basically kind of keeping our office running. Micro fridges, we do have a contract that is a fourth of a penny per dollar. Programming, same. Maintenance and technology. So when you're cursing your Wi-Fi, you can think that a whole cent per dollar is going towards that. Toiletries, like I mentioned, paper towels, toilet paper, that type of thing. Our service contracts are basically things like the housing director, which is our software, laundry contracts, duty phones, that type of thing. And then we do pull out a little bit for housing grants that are offered through the MSCBA that go back to our students. So with that, I will turn it over to Bill to talk about dining.
We have a good bit to talk about dining. It's everyone's favorite topic, probably right after res life or parking. But we want to share a little bit about dates that are coming to you on our behalf. So, as you know, similar to res life in housing, dining has to generate the revenue to run the program from the meal plan pricing that exists. The university does not cover the cost of your meal plan. Any factor. It is 100% supported by the dollars that come in. So a couple of the things we have to have a conversation around are things that we need to change for the upcoming year. Much like residential life and the rest of the university, enrollment is having a negative impact to the dining operations. Right now, we know it takes about 2,000 students on a meal plan to actively support and cover the costs, and we're below that at this point. So that's causing us to have some issues related to revenue to cover all of our expenses. 18 to 22-year-olds are also very demanding. You have high standards and have things that you're looking for on a regular basis, and your palate changes every year. And you want to see new and exciting things, which is difficult for us to continue to respond to during times. Commodities are still difficult. I've shared with food committee, and I'll continue to share with folks that we are struggling sourcing some particular food categories. Pork is one of our items right now. We're ending our pre-pork increase. We bought commodities in bacon. And you know, that's really funny because you refer to money as bacon, but at the end of the day, we bought bacon before the price went up, and we're running out of that bacon. So right now, we were able to hedge our money on making a large purchase, and the spring semester, our bacon price doubles for raw bacon. Our pork loin doubles in the spring semester because we could only warehouse it to get through an academic semester. So those factors are still having a negative impact on our operations, as are things still like eggs and some other whole meat products. For example, ground beef is up 75 cents a pound in the matter of 3 weeks. And you eat a lot of hamburgers, so that has a big impact on some of our areas. And those are unpredicted. You know, we weren't thinking that ground beef was going to go up. And as Steve alluded to in our CPI, food away from home is the metric that we use. We weren't anticipating it to stay steady and not come down as fast as we anticipated. You know, this 5.4% is really hard when we anticipated it coming down with the rest of inflation. The food system is not recovering from COVID as fast as we wanted to or as we anticipated it to. We have a challenge managing our deficits. We have to have a conversation around things that we want to change for next year. Our future program changes and merges are really important. I discussed with food committee, we're having a conversation with an architect now to find a way to streamline dining operations to maybe not reduce the offerings, but reduce the number of locations. So an idea around making Marketplace and TJ Bistro merge into one location that would be open from 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, having convenience goods and food to buy is one of those areas where we can maximize labor and reduce operating costs. So some of those areas we're going to be discussing. Our to-go box program is most likely in its last year. Students are not returning them. We are running out of to-go boxes very, 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 very quickly, and the program is not currently sustainable. We can talk more about that, but that's one of the challenges. And then the last one for me, and we'll talk about that, is related to cost, is cutlery. We have very expensive silverware in the dining commons. It's very nice. I inherited it, but it is gorgeous flatware. For many people, it was probably, I owned IKEA flatware for almost all of my life until just recently, and the flatware we own is much better. We're looking at changing out something simple like that. We've lost 1,000 forks in less than 2 weeks. Oh well, that's right. And almost $2 a fork, it's a lot of money. Where we can buy prison grade forks that are punched out of stainless steel that come in at like 37 or 47 cents a piece. So you'll notice on here my little theft guy in the upper right corner. It is devastating the amount of china, glass, and silverware that is taken out of the dining commons on any given day. 1,000 forks in 2 weeks. I think everyone is giving their family free flatware from the DC for the holidays. I'm sorry, but if I were your parent, I would not be happy with the flatware set from the DC. So if that was your idea, please bring it back. There's no judgment. Glasses are the same way. We've gone through thousands of glasses this semester. Plates and little bowls are hugely impactful there. Every one of those items impact the ability to offer you food or more food or different food or better food because of those particular reasons. The other one for us is trash. We always have a fight with students having tummies that are not the same size as their eyes. So students who over partake or take 8 pieces of chicken when they can really only eat 4 have a negative impact because all of that chicken ends up going in the garbage. Over 40% of the edible food in the US is put into a landfill, and we're contributing to that and shouldn't. No one stops you from getting multiple return portions. We really need to rethink getting up and getting food multiple times versus piling up a plate where the point is you can't get any more on there. That's particularly one of our areas. The cost of our meal plan is driven by everyone that offers you the service. The mortgage from the MSCBA for Res Life is their largest. Our largest cost is our people. There are about 250 people in dining commons, including students, that it takes to operate and give you the services you're looking for. Maintenance is an ongoing issue. As you all know, that the changeover from the dish machine and some highs and lows have created issues. We still have some aging facilities. For example, the shutdown yesterday for the dish machine for a couple hours has to do with a plumbing part in the basement that needs to be replaced because it's old. It's not anything we planned, it's not anything we expected, but it was something that popped up and needed to be replaced. So we have a $4,000 plumbing part coming. It should be here Friday, and we'll switch it over. But those sort of surprises have a big impact when we weren't anticipating them, and it goes to deferred maintenance and some of those other areas that Steve discussed. Again, cost of goods and groceries, paper products, those are the driving factors. So these 6 are the reason why meal plans cost what they cost. Very tiny print for people in the back. Again, you'll get an opportunity to look at this. The department that puts out CPI releases it around the 15th of every month. And one of the interesting pieces for us is this CPI was from the middle of November, so it's as most current as it could be. And so for dining, the metric that we use is that food away from home piece. And it's currently at 5.4%. There's another factor in here that you don't actually see. It's called quick service food away from home, and it's still trending closer to 7.5 or 8%. Is another one of those factors. And for the economy people, you can drill this down to multiple layers. And some of the interesting pieces are that there are categories that are actually going up and not coming down, which are keeping that number so high. And you'll notice on this grid, next to homes is probably still one of the more expensive costs for basic human needs that we have to struggle with. With that being said, knowing that we need 5.4% more to purchase food next year, we have to have a conversation around a $10 million budget and where do we come up with, another $540,000 just for the cost of food. This graph will show you historically where we've come and where we're going. The CPI for food and then the food away from metric usually have a lag between them. So as the cost of food comes down, so does also the cost of food away from home. And you'll see some of that in the trend chart. The blue is food, the green is the cost of food. Like Chris, this is where our money goes. Half of every dollar goes to people, taxes and benefits. 31 cents goes to the food and paper products, so the burgers, the salads, the sandwiches, the to-go boxes, all of those pieces. 11 cents goes to the university overhead to cover all of the extra costs to support a dining program. 3 cents is our operational expenses. And then much like Chris, we also pay a mortgage, but it's much less. We pay 5 cents on every dollar to cover the cost of the mortgage on the dining hall and for the renovations that we did 2 summers ago. This is the slide that everyone loves to talk about. We have taken the information from the town hall. We have taken the information, and Steve, this is the wrong one, you'll get the gist. This has more data than you need, and we'll talk about it. So everything in the green are the new plans will be essentially talked about in the town hall. So we had a couple conversations around dining dollars only for commuters, changing the Hoot 5 to Hoot 7 so that our commuters, or our upper class students could stay on campus and be more involved on weekends. Switching to a block plan so that you had an opportunity to utilize every one of the meals versus a per week plan that expired at the end of the week that you don't use them. We also added 2+ plans. There was a conversation at the last town hall to have plans with additional dining dollars for folks that tend to run out by the midway point. So we essentially created a Nesters Plus and a Blue Plus, which are $150 more dining dollars each semester. So at the end of the day, the plus plans are essentially an addition. The gold 160 was the gold 10, the Hoot 7 was the Hoot 5, and then the dining dollars is the only true new plan that was added. I am happy to have another conversation at the beginning of next semester just to finalize these details and hopefully can be invited back. Today is not the day to talk about these things, but I will share with you that the cost range on here is between 3.5% and 5%. I want to share with you the complete cost for what it would be. So dining has to come up with 9.4% more money next year to stay flat and cover our costs. And if we were to pass that entire amount on to you, it's that very last column. So your meal plan would essentially, right now, the Nesters Unlimited plan is under $5K. Your meal plan would almost have to go up 10% in order for that to be absorbed. That's not fair. That's an astronomical ask of you all, and it's something that we have to have a conversation around. So Steve is right. We'll probably end up somewhere closer to 5. We'll shoot for 3.5. The more ways we can find to create cost savings and to minimize operating expenses is a lower percent increase that gets passed on to you. So in the upcoming year, if your meal plan cost goes up 5%, somewhere else in the dining budget has to be cut 4.5% in order to make up for those cost increases over the next year. So one of the hard decisions for Jack in the upcoming semester will be conversations around how do we try to find ways to create efficiencies and to be more effective in dining with less money. So those will be things we discuss over the next semester. So that's the end of my slides. I invite my other co-presenters up and we're happy to answer any questions.
So I do want to preface questions with 2 things. Number 1, we'll do some brief questions, but we'll keep in time so the meeting moves along. Number 2, Steve, Bill, and Chris are all coming back next semester as one of our first SGA meetings to continue this conversation. So if you have questions you want to say today that you don't get to, you can either ask them next semester or email me and I can reach out. But Chris, Steve, and Bill are also very receptive to student feedback, so I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you guys send them an email or 2 if you guys have any questions. So with that said, are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Chris, Bill, and Steve? Desiree Brown.
Hi, I'm Desiree. I'm a Desiree Council representative. You had mentioned that a lot of the food just gets thrown away. Has the committee of the school thought about doing a composting program along with the local farms and such?
Yes, we actually compost. So all of the waste that you consume, or all of the waste that you don't consume, any food scraps all get turned into compost or turned into a commercial facility here in Westfield that is then turned into some really great dirt that goes to local farms and then even back to the gardens here on campus. So we are composting it. The challenge we're running into is we need to shrink what we're throwing away so that we can produce less and have less expense. Last week it cost $5.53 for every plate that you consume. And one of the challenges with that is that we were budgeted at $3.50. So we're averaging about $2 more per plate compared to a couple factors. One of the things to talk about is the amount of food you're taking in to-go boxes should be equivalent to more than 1 meal swing. And there are students that do come in with multiple, which is causing some mathematical formulas. I don't think that is truly our food cost, but it is something that we're looking at.
Chris Brown.
Hi, Bill. I have one question for you and one for Chris. Mine for you is if you have any information about it, can you talk a little bit about the end of the to-go container program and what the decision behind that was, if any yet,
And then mine for Bill, I'm so sorry. Mine for Chris is, how much is the closure of Lammers costing the school? If you have that number.
So I can't speak to closures, but I can say that it takes about 300,000 to 500,000 to run a residence hall. So, it's challenging because there's a lot that goes into that. So running utilities, and if we're not filling a hall, and we're not able to cover that 300,000 to 500,000, then we could be losing anywhere up to that. So does that help,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. Thank you.
The to-go box program was meant to be a self-sustainable program where students would return used ones, either get a keychain or to take a new one. And we have run into the issue of more and more students aren't bringing them back. And at $7 now, over $7 a container, we are not able to continue the financial expense of covering the cost of those boxes. One of the challenges we're seeing is that some of your peers really strong-arm some of my cashiers into giving them a box, even if they don't have one to return or one to take. And you'll notice the boxes have been moved to behind the cashier because people would go to the restroom and then help themselves to however many boxes they'd like before they leave the dining hall. The program, we can have much greater conversations at food committee, but the sustainability of it is not going to be able to continue. That program started during COVID and was a response to students who were fearful of eating in the dining commons. A lot of our peers have removed that from their dining program. We were lucky enough to have enough funding to carry it this far, but a lot of our peers are getting rid of it because it's not cost sustainable.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
So on the topic of food waste, from what is calculated by the weight of food waste at the end of the semester, I believe, I was wondering if there was a way to track specifically what food items will be wasted the most to potentially decrease the serving proportion.
Yeah, a great question. So we track pre-consumer waste. So anything that is a waste product prior to it hitting the plate or cooking. So if we're breaking down beef, scraps from beef, if we're cutting fresh pineapples, the stems of course pineapples would be what we consider pro-consumer waste or pre-consumer waste. So those are the items that go into impactful, and we measure that. So when they get the skins off of carrots, we want to make sure that we're not taking too much of the skin off the carrots so we aren't having a tremendous amount of waste. And so everything that's pre-U, we measure, we take a photo, and then we track, and we have a system that tells us how much waste happened prior to getting to you, and that's one of the metrics that we look at. The largest factor is we're not able to separate what's going into the dish room because your plates are all scrapped into one giant heap and then turned over for compost. We would like to at some point have some educational informative days where we have students actually start to separate their waste so that students get an understanding of how many pounds they're actually throwing away at the end of their meal. We're going to look at that for hopefully the spring or for next year so that we can do educational days where you'll actually weigh how much food you're throwing away to get an idea of what that's costing us, what that's costing you, and the impact on the environment and all the other factors that go into that.
Jacob Constant.
Hi, Bill. I have two questions for you. The first question is, if you have a to-go box, will you be able to still use it if the program is stopped and you bring it in? And the second question is, maybe I missed it, but what is the difference between food and food away from home?
Oh, okay. So yes, two things. First one, I think that we will continue the to-go box program into the spring semester, and we'll have to evaluate inventory that's left to determine for the fall. But I just want to drop that, and that was a bombshell that I didn't share with food committee prior to today. But we have to bring out another 500 to-go boxes today in order to keep up with the non-returning folks who are coming back. So we are down to almost none left. We will probably be able to get through the spring semester, and then that's it. And we'll need to make a commitment. With a budget, it needs to find $440,000 or $450,000. We have to have a conversation around, do we want to, spend money on to-go boxes, and how that's going to impact the programs. The second thing is food and food away from home. So there are two metrics. Food away from home is considered the service portion of the industry. So food would be raw costs, the cost of ground beef, the cost of milk, the cost of cheese, and those sort of factors. Food away from home takes into account some of the other factors like delivery, transportation, manufacturing, those sort of pieces. So food is more like a commodity. So like wheat grain is taken into that. Food away from home would consider it being processed and turned into something like bread for you.
Thank you.
Any further? Brandon Rita?
Hi, thank you all so much for coming. I'm Brandon Rita, student representative. I just wanted to ask if there would be clear communication to the public about these rising costs and fees, because I know if people just see the numbers rise, there may be an outrage or whatever it may be. And you do a great job explaining it here, and I can completely understand that we're in inflation and things are rising, and I just hope that we can communicate that to people outside of this room too.
I will say overarching, and I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Chris, but I'll speak for myself. We are transparent. Food committee got a copy of our budget. Food committee knows what's going on. I would say most of your peers, I have found probably don't have an interest. I will talk, and you can ask food committee and SGA, I will talk meal plan pricing and numbers any day to anyone that asks. There are no secrets, and you really have to understand this is your money, not mine. The money that comes in for dining services is yours. I have the job of spending your money how you tell me to do so. So, much like Adam and Jack, I really say to them, and they're my boss. At the end of the day, I am merely a trustee of your funds, spending them how you see fit, trying to do the best we can and to spend them in the best way possible so that everyone can eat. If you have ideas or suggestions, or if there are other events or other classes or other groups that you know would want this information, I know I'm happy to present. And I think the more people we can tell our story to, the greater understanding and greater knowledge that our students will have so that they understand what goes into the university. I don't want to say a bad word, but we are in a service industry giving you an education. We also have a business side as well that it takes to cost and operate to be able to provide you those services.
I would just echo what Bill said. Always transparent, please, 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 at any time. If you have questions, always happy to talk about our budget, always talking about the space in the halls. If you have ideas, like I said, we're brainstorming. My brain is only as good as my brain, but I welcome the thoughts and ideas from other folks here, outside. What are some ideas, things that you're hearing from peers that you think would be attractive in the residence halls? What are programs that would be attractive? Are there ways that would be creative to use some of the spaces? I think we're always open to that. And I think, to your point, Brandon, I think we'll be doing additional education because we have a pretty big process that's going to happen in the spring too. And so, part of that, as we're encouraging folks to live on campus, is going to be explaining some of the rising costs with that for next year. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
I am going to move the conversation along, but I want to thank Bill, Chris, and Steve for coming down. Like I said, they will be here early next semester. So thank you for coming down. If you guys have any lingering questions, you can reach out to me. And please have a wonderful holiday, guys. On behalf of SGA, we'll see you all next semester. I have to do a fun job putting this up. Got him. All right. That's pretty much it for hello, everyone. This is our second to last meeting of the year, which is unbelievable. We do not have a meeting on December 18th, but we do have a meeting next week. I want to thank first and foremost my exceptional executive board members for all their hard work this semester. Time has flown by, and it's all thanks to all of you. So thank you for your dedication and hard work. The rest of you, as finals are approaching soon, I want to wish you all the best of luck. I'm saying this week as opposed to next week because I have no finals during our actual final season, but I have things the last day of all of my classes next week. So if you are the same like me with tests and project next week, I wish you all good luck. I just want to remind you that there's an open house this weekend. If you signed up last week, you were all expected to be there on the time you signed up for. All senators are expected to help if you can, so please come by and help if you're around. It's part of being a Senate member is being out at SGA events and kind of helping out with these things. That is all I have. So thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Nicholas? Seeing none. Thank you, Nicholas.
Beautiful. Board of Trustees report, Daniel Courier.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like you all to mark your calendars for our next full-day Board of Trustees meeting, which will be occurring next Wednesday, December 13th in Forenso Hall, Conference Room 107-111, which is adjacent to the Ride Center. With the meeting occurring on main campus, I strongly encourage all of you to attend a portion of the meeting in person that interests you. Our meeting schedule is as follows. 8 to 9 is the Enrollment Management and Student Affairs Committee. 9 to 10 is our Academic Affairs Committee. 10:15 to 11:15 is the Advancement, Marketing, and External Relations Committee. 11:15 to 12 is the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. 12:30 to 1:30 is Financial Affairs. 1:30 to 2:30 is Audit. And 2:45 to 4:45 is the full board meeting. I will be making my student trustee report during the full board meeting. My report, which was reviewed by the Executive Council last night and my MAGI last week, will touch upon our successful fall semester, including well-attended open houses and philanthropic work done by SGA and other clubs and organizations, SGA issues and initiatives, including our response to the South Block car break-ins and the development of a common hour policy, and my current initiatives, which include the centralization of student employment postings and working with intramurals on effective marketing. Should you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Daniel Courier? Seeing none. Thank you, Dan. Up next, Student Advisory Committee, Dan Courier.
The Student Advisory Council will be meeting virtually this Thursday, December 7th. The Student Advisory Council will be reviewing House Bill 3761, which, if enacted, will create a fund to support open educational resources in institutions of higher education. For those that don't know, open educational resources are materials available to the public domain or through open access license that allow for no-cost access for students and instructors. The bill would encourage instructors to utilize open educational resources for their courses, thereby reducing costs for students. We will also take time to learn more about the Boston Intercollegiate Government and how we can work together to accomplish our collective goals, including on basic needs security. We'll also be forming groups to develop that. Should you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Dan Courier? Jack Linden.
Hi, Dan. So for that bill, that would mean like textbooks, right? Like professors would be recommended to utilize public's open textbooks, that way it saves students money?
Yes, there would be basically grants to support faculty to have open educational resources. We can't force them to have open educational resources under collective bargaining agreements, but that would be encouraged through various grants from the Department of Higher Education.
Any further? Seeing none. Thank you, Dan. Vice President of Support Student Life, Jack Linden.
Good evening, everyone. Last week I forgot to report on Student Affairs Committee, so I'm going to start with that. On November 17th, Student Affairs Committee met for a monthly meeting. We discussed a few main topics, one being the coffee hour idea. We decided to switch it up. The committee came up with an idea that I am going to present tonight, is doing tours of res halls with an RA and a student for the faculty and staff. This is an idea I was going to probably bring up to you as well before I brought it to SGA, but I forgot to do that last week. Well, I will be meeting with Res Life soon to discuss this and see if this is something we can do. One other thing we did discuss was working to set up more outdoor seating for students to eat lunch. We talked about getting a couple picnic tables, the metal ones, outside of Wilson Commuter Lounge on the side of campus that you can see out by the green. We're still coming up with the name for the event that I talked about before. We have two ideas, either Connect the Nest or Nest Connections. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I think it's the second Friday this month because the third is like almost Christmas break. Last week, me, Dan, and Sarah met to discuss the Common Hour proposal. We discussed engaging stakeholders and people who this would affect the most, as well as working to fine-tune our proposal for the spring semester that we will be using to propose. We will be meeting again this Friday, to discuss this further. On Monday, I met with VP Hearn. We discussed a few things. One of them was that I did reach out to facility to see if we could flood the green if it does not naturally flood. That way we can have a skating rink. Don't laugh. One of the other things we also discussed is the owl statue and what that would look like moving it towards Wilson. Before the meeting, Tony updated me that the gate is a work in progress, so I'll have a bigger update on that soon. Lastly, I met with Laura today, and we discussed the Community Innovation Fund request. I continue to work with Laura, Dan, and Maureen Facilities, as well as Dominique, to come up with my proposal and pitch by the end of the week. Lastly, I'm looking for one more student to join Student Affairs Committee. So if you want to join us for once a month on the third Friday, except this month, please find me after the meeting. That's it.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Jack Linden? Seeing none, thank you, Jack. Food Services Committee, Adam Carpenter.
Food Services Committee met last Friday, and I have a few brief points to discuss that came out of this meeting. The first point of discussion was that dining believed that the food show that occurred this past week was a massive success. This was the second occurrence of the food show type event, which we had last year previously. I really think that the only other update which I have is that this is the last Food Service Committee this last week that I will be the chair of. Due to complications with my placement schedule, I will be unable to continue in this role. I leave this committee in the capable hands of Jack Linden, who I'm sure will be just as great of a chair of the committee as I was. We've had our highs and lows in this position, but it was an honor to serve as the chair for the year that I've sat in the position, and I have nothing more to discuss. So, Food Service Chair, signing off.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Adam Carpenter?
Nicholas Smith.
Hello, Adam. Thank you for all your effort in food services. I'm sure Bill loved working with you. I know we love hearing from you, so I hope you pick up a food service meeting from time to time. We appreciate it. So one more round of applause. Any further? Seeing none. Thank you, Adam. What kind of notice? Come on. Advisory Committee on Academic Planning, Sarah Harrington.
Hi everyone. The Advisory Committee for Academic Planning met on Thursday, November 30th to review the themes we have decided to be our focus. First theme we spoke about is reimagining student success and how to further incorporate high impact practices into the classroom. We reviewed the academic master plans in 2018 to see how focuses have shifted and noticed that there was no direct mention of students, so we've shifted to be more student-centric. Theme 2 was discussed to change the formatting of the goals to support professional growth of faculty, staff, and librarians. This includes reinvigorating support. We then discussed the renaming of Theme 3 to redesigning and changing programs. We have decided that due to our remaining time in the semester, we'll be meeting weekly for the next several weeks rather than bi-weekly. Discussions on how to further collect data to help with the finalization of our goals are underway. Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Sarah Harrington? Seeing none, thank you, Sarah. Academic Policy Committee, Joseph Bennett.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Last Friday, the Academic Policies Committee met to review 2 proposals that were moved to be approved pending edits, one of which regarded our policy on policies. I found that kind of fun. We agreed to include statements of purposes, or include statement of purposes on policies as is precedented. We typically didn't have them in academic policies in our logs, so we moved to have that formally in there. The second regarded library collections and content development, which included some minor language and some text changes, and a statement of purpose as well. The majority of the edits for this policy were on sections 5.01 to 5.09. If you want more information on that, you can definitely ask me after the report. It's so worth it to learn about. The subcommittee on the academic dishonesty policy and artificial intelligence in the classroom will convene this Thursday at 3:30, and the next academic policies committee meeting will be next Friday during common meeting hour. Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Joseph Bennett? Seeing none, thank you, Joseph. IT is terrible. University Curriculum Committee, Scott Milano.
Good afternoon, everyone. UCC met last Friday, December 1st, to review and revise courses in economics and music. Unfortunately, this meeting we're only able to go over economics courses, so music will be discussed next meeting. Courses such as mathematical economics, intro to econometric methods, development of economic thought, and the senior research seminar were all revised, with main matters of adding prerequisites such as Math 115 to Econ 204, microeconomics and macroeconomics as prerequisites to Econ 2XX problem solving workshop, and then 1 extra credit to 300 and 400 level courses, and then the idea of variable credits have been brought up. Main concern in Econ right now is the idea of a 2-tier major, where a course can relate 2 tracks and 2 concentrations. The ideas of how to accommodate the variable credits and which would apply to Econ 204 were discussed. Then that discussion was then tabled and then brought up after the discussion of program revision to undergraduate economics. And then the other concern was the ideas of experiential courses, 1 credit courses, additions, the variable credits again, and then other Econ courses were also discussed and revised. And then all of those were then tabled and then will be reviewed in a future meeting. That's all I have.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Scott? Seeing none. Oh, sorry. Wait, who's up now? Oh, it's a phone call. Sorry.
I got surprised.
Seeing none. Thank you, Scott. Pardon the spelling error. Parking Appeals Board, the encounter.
Thank you. The Parking Appeals Committee met last Wednesday, November 27th. We appointed a chair for this committee, me. I am told this is a role with no special privileges, duties, or responsibilities. Nevertheless, a great honor. Afterwards, we of course reviewed and appealed some of the tickets. I'll just explain real quick how the appeals process works. If you get a ticket, there is a link at the bottom that leads to either payment, or you can send it to the appeals board with your reasoning for why it should be appealed. And then it comes to us anonymously. And then one last thing, we found out there had been some confusion across campus about who can park where. And then so we're going to be working out how to get the correct information out to everyone. And they'll be meeting next Monday. That's all that.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Liam? Sarah Harrington.
First, I want to say congratulations on your first report this year. And also, parking appeals is one of the committees I oversee, so if you need any help or support with that, just
Any further? I have 3 parking tickets. You'll probably hear about it soon. Seeing none, don't laugh. Thank you, Liam. Vice President's report, Student Equity, Joseph Bonilla.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to see some of you this afternoon after, wow, I can't see English. Sorry, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to see, it was great to see some of you this afternoon at Dr. Ora Sekeli's presentation on the Israel-Hamas war. As many of you may have noticed during break, the Division of Jedi sent out an email communication informing our community that a renewed DDI module has become live. I encourage you all to complete the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging module to better understand and celebrate our diverse community. During my one-on-one with Dr. Pierce, our Vice President of Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, we discussed various line items, including potential updates on Banner regarding third-party organization compliance and such, creating a sense of belonging through various Jedi-related programming and or programs, and the current student climate. As far as banner is going, there really isn't any updates to this point, but I will definitely let you guys know this one. Both Daniel Courier and I attended Center for Student Success and Engagement staff meeting last week. During the meeting, we also had the opportunity to engage with a financial aid presentation on notable upcoming changes to FAFSA. We both had the opportunity to report to the CSSE what we personally have been working on, as well as the rest of our Student Government Association. Seeing the scale of the changes to FAFSA for the 2024-2025 academic year, Sarah and I met today to discuss potential FAFSA information sessions and workshops for the spring semester. Stay tuned for more details. We will be meeting with Simone Baxit, the Director of Financial Aid, later this week to discuss the aforementioned and potential collaborations between the Student Government Association and the Office of Financial Aid. I met with the Interfaith Advisory Council yesterday, and we discussed how to include faith-based clubs with the rest of our campus community through programming, marketing, and more. I'll be meeting with the Interfaith Chaplains Council and Unity Councils tomorrow. If you would like me to include anything or mention anything during these meetings, please let me know after the report. As always, feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns either after the report via email at vpequity.sga@westfield.edu or during my office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And as always, I'll leave you with a quote. Nelson Mandela once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall." Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Joseph Bonilla? Seeing none, thank you, Joseph.
And now for your Vice President's report, publicity, Nicholas Smith.
Hello, as you can tell, I'm not Elizabeth. So I'm reading this on behalf of Elizabeth. I also didn't read this beforehand, and it is not in a dyslexia-friendly font, so pardon if I stumble a little bit. All right, let's do it together. Hi, everyone. I heard a little bit. I hope everyone who went to New York had a good time. I did. Today, the Social Work Association had a bake sale at 11 a.m. today. Today, to the 9th, is the door decorating contest in University Hall. Top 3 doors will win owl bucks. Every Tuesday at 12:30 in the Interfaith Center has a moment of peace, which is a 5-minute moment of silence in the garden. Core Room Mindfulness is at 4:15 in the Interfaith Center on Tuesdays. Dining services will have Costa Rican dinner tomorrow night from 5 to 8 p.m. Bars Over Bars is tomorrow from 5 to 8 p.m. in the Owl's Nest, hosted by Ethan. This is an educational opportunity for students to go over the pricing of drinks at bars and how students can spend their money in better ways. Frosty Bites will also take place tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the Dickinson Lounge. This event is for cookie decorating, hosted by the apartment complex. Spirituality and Nature will be on Thursdays from 12:20 to 1:15 p.m. in the Meditation Garden Gazebo. This will focus on quiet reflections and guidance for all students. Jedi is hosting a game night on Thursday at 6 p.m. in the Owl's Nest. This event will have food, games, and a Kahoot game, and Guess Who, and a word search. Also, wear your ugly sweaters to be entered into the Ugly Sweater competition. Davis After Dark is this Thursday at 7 p.m. in the main lounge. Gingerbread House Cookies with kits will be in Dickinson Hall on Thursday at 7 p.m. First Generation Friday will have hot cocoa and collage making. This will be at 12 p.m. in the Ely Club Room on Friday. Wings Over New Hall will be on Friday at 6 p.m. A holiday movie night will be in the Dickinson Common Room at 8 p.m. on Friday. Cab will be hosting a gingerbread competition at 8 p.m. on the second floor of Ely. Catholic Mass is every Sunday at 11 a.m. I hope you all have a good weekend. Also, my hockey game, that's not me, this is Elizabeth speaking. Also, my hockey game is on Saturday at 12 p.m. in Amelia Park. If I missed something or you would like me to include your event in my report, you can email me at vppublicity.sga@westfield.ma.edu. Thanks.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Nicholas?
Public M&M, that was praise.
Seeing none, thank you, Nicholas.
I don't know who's next. Community fundraising representative report, Haley Kane.
Hi everyone, I I hope you're all having a great week. I just want to provide a couple of updates to thank everyone for their support this semester. First, our annual turkey drive raised over $2,000. Thank you to everyone who donated and helped collect donations. I hope this turkey drive continues to be a success, and I'm looking forward to supporting whoever runs this drive in the future. Also, thank you to everyone who helped out at Breakfast with Santa on Saturday. It was a huge success. We had around 121 people attend the 8:30 seating, and around 213 people attend the 10:30 session. All the children had a great time talking to Santa, getting their face painted, making a craft, or getting a balloon animal. I'm so proud that we brought this event back to campus, and I'm looking forward to seeing it become a bigger event each year. Thank you all, and good luck with the rest of your semester.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Haley Kane? Joseph and Mia.
Congratulations, Haley.
Thank you.
And congrats to all of you for helping with the turkey drive. I think last year we only hit like $800, so 2,000 is wild. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, you look confused. Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Class of 2024 report, Haley.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to come up briefly tonight to share the progress that we've made as a council in the past few weeks. Our 100 Days to Commencement celebration is scheduled for February 8th, 2023 at Westfield River Brewing Company from 6 to 9 p.m. We're having it catered, inviting representatives from the Westfield State Alumni Association who are bringing gifts for their soon to be newest alumni, decorating a place for photos and celebrating together. Nestor will also be in attendance. We're looking forward to designing and sending out the invitations. Also, Senior Week has been approved. I'm so excited to share this news with you all. It will be from May 13th to May 17th. We have exciting events planned for each day, like a trip to MGM on Monday, Boston and the Red Sox on Tuesday, Brownstone and Treehouse Brewery on Wednesday, and a campus greeting celebration with food trucks and events on Thursday, all leading up to commencement on Friday. We will be staying in University Hall, included in the costs of the packages, which stand right now at $225 per person. To alleviate some of the financial burden, we're hoping to have them available for sale before the holidays so champions can help out as a holiday gift. Developing a sponsor or senior opportunity for donors to pay for a student who want to attend, and hoping to partner with different departments across campus who would be willing to offer their support by working with Mackey Welch. Our goal, and when I say goal, I mean we must have 150 students in order to get this off the ground, so please spread the word to your senior friends. We would love to bring back this tradition so you all can host your own senior weeks too and celebrate all you have accomplished at Westfield State. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask them now or after the meeting concludes. Have a great rest of your week and good luck.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Katie Egan?
Nicholas Smith.
That's me. I just want to thank you for all your amazing work. You've been president for 4 years, you've done an amazing job, and bringing back senior week is a huge task, but I know if there's anyone that can do it, it's the class of 2024, and Katie Egan, so thank you.
I have a point of information for Katie, because this is brand new information. Students who find themselves in a predicament where they're not able to truly afford senior week should contact a member of the sales department so that we can assist students as they.
Thank you, sales department.
Any further? Seeing none, thank you, Katie. Class of 2027, class council, Taylor Leary.
Good evening, everyone. The class of 2027 had our very first event last Thursday. The council wants to thank everyone who attended this event and making this possible. We met our goal of 40 students and painted all 8 recycling bins. Our council also met Friday and discussed making new changes in marketing and outreach to have even more students join future events. Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Kayla? Joseph Bonilla.
Congratulations on your event. I stopped by and I really loved the decoration. You guys had a really creative group, painting a lot better things than I could paint. So congrats. Thank you.
The trash cans do look beautiful. Any further? Seeing none, thank you, Jayla. Class of 2026, class council, Justin Wall.
Thank you, everybody. Last week we wrapped up our week-long event with some cool activities. The writing workshop on Wednesday went well. Ink and Sip on Thursday was a hit. And Friday's bingo night was a blast, and everyone loved it. The hall competition is still on, and we'll find out the winner and reveal the prize this Friday. Now we're looking forward to a nice relaxing break. When we come back, we're excited to start planning some awesome events for the next semester. The success of last week's activities has us pumped to create even more fun experiences for everybody. And that's it.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Justin Wall? Seeing none, thank you, Justin. Congratulations. Community Council, Fabian Ross.
Friday, December 1st, the Community Council met to discuss the previous Community Appreciation Day, outcomes, and how it could improve for future events. In addition to Community Council members, Jules from CAP joined us to share marketing techniques. We discussed ways to publicize our commuter lounge across campus, as well as tips to create successful infographic for the Community Council. They also unanimously decided on the new name for the commuter lounge to be the Commuter Corner. We are working with facilities to get proper signage in place with the new name. Also, a winner was chosen for our merchandise giveaway, which was held on Community Appreciation Day. Finally, we looked through our suggestion box located in the Commuter Corner, concerns of parking limitations, and receiving tickets amongst commuters were raised. We're going to post a poll with questions relating to these issues to gauge this issue amongst the community. The idea of a carpool being set up for commuters was also shared. We are working to find a way to connect commuters who wish to carpool together and facilitate communication that way. Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns for Fabian? Seeing none, thank you, Fabian. Is there any new business? Announcements? Sarah Harrington?
I have a meeting with the provost next Tuesday. If there's anything in particular you'd like me to bring to him, be free to tell me.
Joseph McGann?
Hi, everyone. Jared College has finally rescheduled their our event, Polyamory Engaging, with our guest speaker to Thursday this week, 5:30 to 6:30 at the Wilson Auditorium. If you guys want to stop by, I definitely suggest it. It's going to be really fun. Learn a few things. Hope to see you guys there.
Chris Piero?
Hello, the History Club is doing a movie trip to go see the Napoleon movie, December 12th or 13th maybe, at the Westfield Springfield Cinemark, and you'll need to get your own ride there.
What a privilege, it's the 13th. Or, sorry, information, my bad. Oopsies. Caitlin Egan?
164 days till commencement.
Roll call.
Caitlin Egan.
Here.
Timothy Allen. Isabella Patel.
Here.
Scott Dewan. Here. Nick Colombo. Here. Anderson Delaire. Here. Gage Glanville. Justin Walls. Here. Crystal Mills. Naomi Brito. Travis McLaughlin. Here. Patty Soa. Benjamin Burnham. Kayla Leary.
Here.
Ariane Baker. Abby Glashman. Desiree Brown.
Here.
Fabian Morales. Here. Haley Kane.
Here.
Isabella Mendez. James McDonald. Here. Owen Black. Savannah Souza. Miles Jordan. Gavin Fazio. Here. Jacob Constant. Here. Austin Morgan. Here. Brandon Rita. Here. Maggie Roberts.
Here.
Daniel Lyons. Here. Liam Connor. Here. Angela Hayes.
Here.
Chris Tira. Here.
If there is no additional business, I call to adjourn the December 5th meeting of the Student Government Association until next week, December 12th. Let's take a bar time.
Yeah, so everything's like thank you. Every
Yeah, I
Always. Yes, you guys are fine. You guys are fine. Yes, current.
Beautiful meeting, everyone. Beautiful.
No, it's yeah.